Is that better? When it's turned on, it works a lot better. All right, good to see everybody today. A few announcements I have. First of all, on our sick list, Larry Cohen, this is Linda's husband, is back in the hospital. He's in ICU with sepsis from pneumonia. So that was, I think, Friday night he went in there, but keep him in your prayers. Jim Cameron's going to be having surgery this week, Tuesday and Thursday. And Raines Jackson is going to be having surgery the 17th. Denise Nolan is going to be having some biopsies in a week or so. So anybody else we need to add to our prayer list? Yes, sir. On what date? Thursday, okay. Steve Schaefer is going to be having hip surgery Thursday. Okay, anyone else? I didn't ask, any good news? Okay, I'm sorry, Bob. Okay, all right. They're going to be going down to Moffat Tuesday, did you say? Tuesday. Jan's going to be having some treatments. They got to get that scheduled up and everything, so please keep Jan in your prayers. And anyone else? Okay, let's go to our Father. All right. I didn't ask. Any good news? Jody's back. That's good news. Anybody else? Yep. Jed was back last week, but all right. Well, good. As I say, we're in the 8th chapter of 1 Corinthians, and hopefully you've read that. But that first phrase in this chapter, now concerning things offered to idols, what does that tell us? What does that tell us? They had problems. Remember, we spoke about having a letter was written to him, evidently, from what he said in the chapter before. Letter was written to him, again, outlining probably various problems they had. He had heard reports from other people, from Chloe's household and other members there, that there were certain issues in the congregation there in Corinth. So they were having problems. And one of those problems was things offered to idols. What does it mean when it says things? What kind of things were offered to idols generally? Say again? Animals? Animal sacrifices? Okay. Was anything else offered to idols, as far as you know, from what you've heard in your background? Food? Food, yes? Food, okay. I'm sorry? Yeah, mostly meat, mostly meat. Remember thinking back to the Jewish offerings at the temple, did they bring just meat? No, they had grain offerings also. And you don't hear too much about those, but they had grain offerings also. So different types of things could be offered, but generally it was meat. And that next question, what do you know about idol worship? Well, idol worship was pretty much the same thing. Generally meat, although there could be other things that they offered. Obviously, and we had talked before about in some, at least one of the temples, maybe more, there was prostitution going on as part of their worship, if you want to consider that an offering. But different things they offered at that time. What else do you know about idol worship in that time? Anything else you know about it? Well, I'll give you a few things. Archaeological findings in many of the ancient cities, they found large meat markets right next door or very close to different temples. And so what does that tell you? Yeah. They sold some of the meats that were offered, and that's one of the subjects we'll talk about today. It was common for them to sell some of the meats in the marketplace after it had been offered to idols. Generally, when someone brought an animal, let's say, to the priests, whether this be Jewish or other gods, temples, what happened to that carcass? What happened to all that meat? Did they burn it all up on the fire? Yeah. Some of it was given generally to the priests, certainly in the Jewish worship. Some of that meat was given to the priests for them and their families, and some of it was given back. Not all of it was burned in the fire. Some of it was given back to the person who brought it. So what happened to all that meat? Oftentimes, some of it was sold in the marketplace, and they suppose that's why these meat markets were so close to the temples. They take the animal or the meat to the temple, offer some of it to their god, and then bring it to the marketplace and sell it. That's a great analogy, Steve. If you didn't hear, Steve said it's like Dollar Generals. They're everywhere. All right. And as I say, generally part of it was given to the priest. Some of it was taken home for the family to use. Some of it was sold in the marketplace like any other meat. Now, what happened when a Gentile family ate this meat when they had taken it to be offered, and then they brought the remainder home? What was their feeling generally in that family when they were eating the meat? Nobody knows. I don't know for sure, but they tell me that sometimes that family would feel like that meat was sacred because it had been offered to their god, to their idol. The culture in that day and time was very, very superstitious. And there were people that were taken over by demons and things like that, evil spirits. And they felt like that when this meat had been offered to the idol, that got rid of the bad spirits. They believed spirits sometimes came into you by what you ate. So if the meat was offered to their god, it was sanctified or it was cleansed by that god, and they would not get any spirits. So eating meat sacrificed to idols was not only just for nutrition, but also to keep them safe from demons. So there are a lot of things that go along with eating meat offered to idols. And that's why, as we'll see, some of the brethren had problems with that. So what was the dilemma for a Christian if they went to the meat market and they bought a piece of meat? Was there a dilemma? Okay. Number one, was it offered to idols? Number two, what if it was? Was that a problem for the Christians? Yeah, for some it was, some it wasn't. What about the Christian who had grown up worshiping this idol? And he came to Jesus, became a Christian, and then he's offered some of this meat that was offered to the idol. That could be a real problem for some of them. That could be a real problem because you don't just get rid of those things overnight. It takes time to learn and to grow as a Christian. And so some of these things could affect their relationship with the Lord because they were eating meat that they thought had some significance to it because it had been offered to an idol. So that was a real problem. What about for a Christian who happened to be invited to dinner to a non-Christian's home and they were served meat? Don't ask, don't tell, right? Yeah, it could be a problem for a Christian to take part and eat that meat. Jim? Okay. Yeah. And that would probably be fine as long as the Christian understood that. Yeah, as long as the Christian understood that, that would probably be fine. And we're going to look here in just a minute at one other point. And would the Christian be endorsing idolatry if he ate the meat that was offered to an idol in front of an idol worshiper? Okay, that's great. Jim said it's an opportunity to talk with that person about the idol and about Jesus. So that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What instructions were given to the early church in Acts 15, 28, 29? Anybody remember? In the council they had at Jerusalem, remember the apostles and the elders in Jerusalem came together because there was a problem with Jews demanding new converts to be circumcised and whatever. Remember what that council, what their final word was? Okay. They were told to stay away from meats offered to idols, from things strangled, and sexual immorality. So, if the early church was told that, what is Paul doing now? Is he saying they were wrong? Because he's talking about meats offered to idols, which is what the early church in Jerusalem was told to avoid. Didn't he? That's right. If it's going to be a problem to somebody else, avoid it. Don't do it. And that's what this whole chapter is about. If what you're doing is a problem somebody else can lead them astray, then don't do it. So at this time, now this was probably 15 years later, maybe 20 years later, after that council in Jerusalem. Things have changed a little bit. He's talking not to Jews, he's talking to the church in Corinth at this time about this. And so evidently it was pretty common practice to eat things they had gotten from the marketplace, which may have been offered to an idol. But some people were having a problem with that. And so that's what this chapter's all about. Okay, he talks about knowledge. Look there in verses 1 and 2. Now, concerning things offered to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing yet as he ought to know. So some pretty good words there about knowledge. So what point is Paul making here about knowledge? Is it wrong to have knowledge? No. Okay. What point is he making about it? Okay. Don't. Okay. Jim? Okay. Okay. We all know, we all have some knowledge, right? You know, obviously, we all have some knowledge, but don't be arrogant about what you know. Steve? Okay, sorry. Okay, don't be pushy about what you know. Brother? What is the definition of knowledge? Of an idol. Okay. Are you asking me, or is that just a statement you're throwing out? Okay. Okay, all right. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Anything that comes before God is an idol. Whether it's an object or whether it's a something we do, anything like that. Yep. They're not gods. In fact, he talks about them something made with hands. Yeah, yeah. So anything that takes our attention and our focus away from the living God is an idol, can be an idol. Brother? Okay. That's right. Right. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. No, nothing is clean in and of itself. It's the way it's used, the way it's thought of, that can be that way. Yes, sir. Exactly right. And some people don't even know that it's offending them. If it weakens them in any way, they may not, in their mind, take offense to it. But if it weakens somebody, it's wrong. Don't do it. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's what it's all about. Yep, absolutely. Okay. What intellectual or moral defect is shown by the Corinthians in verse 2? If anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing as he ought to know. Steve. Mm-hmm. That's right. You're not as smart as you think you are. Yeah. Exactly. Steve, Jim said, this is where wisdom trumps knowledge. You know, whatever knowledge you have, it's got to be used the right way. It's got to be used the right way. There's a saying, we don't know what we don't know. You know, and as Christians, I think we find out more each day concerning God and concerning the Word. We don't know as much as we think we know about it. I don't know about you, but every time I read the scriptures, I see something else that I hadn't seen before. It's a good point. People with knowledge sometimes can be overbearing. Wise people are not. We got to use that knowledge the way the Lord wants us to use it, brother. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What does it mean to be known by God? In verses 3. But if anyone loves God, this one is known by him. Therefore, concerning the eating of things offered to idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is no other God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we for him, and the Lord Jesus Christ, through him who are all things, and through whom we live. So what does it mean to be known by God? Okay, have a relationship with him. Say again. To love him. Okay. To belong to him. Okay. Somebody read 2 Peter 1, 3, and 4. And then somebody read 1 John 4, 7, and 8. Okay. Notice it says there that his divine nature has allowed us to have knowledge of him. When we have knowledge of him, in turn, he will know us if we obey him, if we do what he wants us to do. That allows God to know us. 1 John 4, 7, and 8. Yep. That's the key to all of it. Knowing God, loving God, because God is love. If we know him by the knowledge we have of him and the love that we have for him and for others, God knows us. And that's obviously what we all want for God, to be known by God. One person said, anyone who knows the truth is very conscious of how much he does not yet know. And we know the truth, we love God, then we are known by God. How does the pagan concept of God or gods contrast with that of the Christian? How does the pagans look at God? Or what is their concept of God? Steve? Just another idol. Where did that idol come from? It's made with hands. Something made with hands. Okay, what else? What other concept do they have of God or gods? Okay, generally they can see their God. Okay, yeah. What else? How many gods did they have? They had a God for everything. You know, they had a God for getting up in the morning, had a God for going to bed at night, God for food things, God for other pleasures and everything, just all kinds of gods. Their concept of God was something they could reach out and touch. What about the attitude of some of their gods? Did they have some mean gods? Vindictive gods? Yeah, certainly. I mean, they blame bad things that happened in their life that were not good. They blame it on a god, or they angered their gods. That's what happened. Their gods were vindictive. Yes, sir. Okay. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, what about our concept of God? How does that differ from the heathens' concepts? One God, first of all, who is above all and in all. What else? Ours is always comforting, all-encompassing, sorry. Yeah. He's the one God of everything, all-encompassing. And beyond that, being in everything, he made everything, right? Our God made everything. What else? Steve. That's right. That's right. That's right. He demands to be the only God. He's a jealous God, it tells us. Yeah. What else? Anything else? He's alive. He's here right now. He's alive. He always has been. Anything else? One big thing. Okay, he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He loves us, right? He loves us. We've got a God that's not vindictive. He doesn't bring bad things on us. He loves us. He's alive and he loves us. And how much did he love us? That's right. He loved us before we even were, before we even existed. Say again? He's everlasting. Yeah. He gave us his son. He loves us so much that he gave us he sent his only son down here to die because of me, because of you. Yeah. Completely different concept of God. Okay? Speaking of God, what does the phrase of whom are all things meant? That's in verse 6. Yet for us there is one God, the Father, of whom are all things. What does that mean? Okay? He created everything. He's in everything. And the next phrase, and we for him. What does that mean? And we for him. Yeah. We belong to him, right? We belong to him. Yeah. And it talks about Jesus as well. And down a little bit further, and one Lord Jesus Christ, through whom are all things. What does that mean? That's right. That's right. He made us. He made everything. Jesus Christ. Yes, sir. Exactly right. Yeah, yeah. And then this next phrase, through whom we live. What does that mean? Through whom we live. That's right. Okay, through whom we exist. Okay. We can't do anything without him. He makes everything keep on going. And what about the Christ? Absolutely. We need to be the image of him. Yeah. Okay. In whom we live. Because Jesus Christ, what he has done for us, we live through him. And that gives us eternal life through him. So a lot of things right there in that one little verse about what our God does, about what our God means to us, means to the Christian, and to everybody that follows him. Anybody else on that? He absolutely is the light of the world. Okay, going on. In verse 7, however, there is not in everyone that knowledge, for some with consciousness of the idol until now eat as if it was a thing offered to an idol, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. So, what happens to these people? The people who don't have the knowledge that we have of God. Mm-hmm. Right. Remember when you were growing up, you thought your mother had eyes in the back of her head because she always caught you? You know, we sort of need to be that way as we conduct our life because people are watching us. Again, things that we do, things that are out there in this world that may be fine in and of itself, but if it's seen by someone else, it can cause problems for them. So we need to be, as I say, very conscious of those around us, as he's talking about here. He said, "Someone with consciousness of the idol until now." Those are people who used to be idol worshipers, and now they know better. Now they're Christians, but still, you know, you don't throw off that baggage immediately after you come out of the water. You know, it takes a while to learn and to grow and be able to handle those things that you used to do. But if a young, innocent person sees you doing some things that in your mind are fine, and their mind reminds them of what they used to do, that's problems, that's trouble. Trouble for them, and in turn, trouble for us as well. So what does he do? He gives an example here of eating food in an idol's temple. Is it okay to eat food in an idol's temple? Would it be? Okay. Who would it cause to suffer? People in the temple, yeah. Even if they're not Christians, what does it say to people in the temple? It says you're giving them the okay of what they're doing. And that's not the proper thing for a Christian to be doing. Hypothetical questions. Steve's question was, one of our so-called Christians used to have the policy of not eating meat on Friday. If you're young, you may not know what that's all about. But there was a decree from the Catholic Church not to eat meat on Friday. You could eat fish, but no other kind of meat. So Steve is asking if we went to someone's house like that and ate their fish on Friday, we'd be condoning what they believe. It's much the same as eating meat in an idol's temple. Say again? Just eat your vegetables. Good point. Good point. Exactly. That's right. Yeah, Denny? That's right. Okay, we got all kinds of things here. Anyway, since we don't have to worry about that again, we'll go on. Jan? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Uh-huh. Right, right, right. I mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah. What do we do? Number one, I think you always be respectful of people's beliefs, even if they're wrong. But number two, always do what's right. Always do what's right. We know what to do, but we also need to be respectful of others. When the time comes, it opens up, as Jim said, opens up a door to teach them is why we don't believe in this particular thing, why we believe in God, the only God, and His Son Jesus Christ, and why we may think differently on that. But you always need to be respectful of others. Yes, sir. It is. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so what's my call? Did I go ahead and work it? I did. But guess what? We talked about that, and he said, oh, so when we got in there, he said, you're a luck, there's nobody to play.
It is. It is. Yeah. Brother? Richard. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we were, years ago, we moved to up in Virginia somewhere, and we drove up to the Church of Christ nearby, and we almost parked in the spot that said organist. So, and then I found out that the churches up there will have Church of Christ and then congregational singing below their sign to specify who they are. But yeah, that happens. But always be respectful, but also teach whenever you have the opportunity. That's the idea, I think. And that question, in what way can our knowledge be used by the devil? How can our knowledge be used by the devil? Can we be arrogant? Absolutely we can. Christians can be very arrogant about their knowledge. And that just turns people off. You'll never have a chance to talk to someone for good when you turn them off by our arrogance. And what happens when our brother sins by our actions? Say again? What happens when a brother sins by our actions? Counted against who? Counted against us. Exactly right. Exactly right. And verse 11, and because of your knowledge, shall the weak brother perish for whom Christ died? But when you thus sin against the brethren and you wound their weak conscience, you sin against Christ. That's pretty strong words there. When something we do causes a brother to stumble, we sin against Christ. But then how does Paul conclude these instructions? Verse 13. What does he say? In your words, what does Paul say in verse 13? Okay, you'll not do something if it causes somebody else to sin. We need to be very conscious of that. If by our action causes a brother to sin, don't do it. Teach the brother. Give him time to mature and grow. But if we're going to do anything to wound a brother, don't do it. Stay away from it. All right, our time is up. Next week, read chapter 9. And Brother Wayne,